Hello everyone, welcome to From the Star Wars Library, where Star Wars is in print, the Force is with the readers, and we return to 1983 for the last of the Marvel annuals, at least in the United States. There are those Marvel specials and annuals going on in the UK, which you can find out more about in the Marvel UK supplement episode of From the Star Wars Library. I'm your host, Nathan P. Butler. The third annual from Marvel, in this case, printed in August of '83, is entitled The Apprentice, a very overused title in Star Wars, but entitled The Apprentice. Now, this is by a somewhat different creative team. You'll find it, by the way, also in the pages of Star Wars Omnibus A Long Time Ago, Volume 4. But this is by the creative team of Jo Duffy, or Mary Jo Duffy as the writer, but a new artist and colorist who happen to be the same man, in this case, Klaus Janson. And you'll find that the art style, while having a lot of interesting color choices and shading, it really just, it's not a very good art style. I mean, it's just not a lot of detail to the characters' faces. This is Luke and Len. I mean, look at the faces. There's not a lot of detail to them. Chewie's face barely exists in the back. I mean, it's not the type of art that we've been seeing in the series by Ron Frenz that is such a good art style to portray Star Wars. Fortunately here, the story at least somewhat makes up for it, although its placement in the omnibus is a little bit odd. It's more chronological in terms of publishing as when it's placed, as opposed to fitting in chronologically. So if you're reading this, it's going to feel really weird when you just sort of are in the middle of Chantanus of the Stars and the Big Con, and here's this annual dropped in the middle along with Hoth stuff, that filler issue just dropped there in the center of those two interlinked or somewhat interlinked stories. You can also find this story in black and white form where, honestly, to a degree, the artwork works a little bit better, though not by much, in the pages of Classic Star Wars A Long Time Ago Prestige Format Series number 1. Now, basically what happens here is you have the planet Belderone, where the people are called Belderons, basically, and the Millennium Falcon arrives with Luke and Lando and Leia and Chewbacca and the droids, and they're on a mission because of the planet Kolthus, which is a neighboring planet where there is a rebel base, and they need to find out what is going on the planet Belderone. There's, Imperial presence here. They got to keep their presence on Kolthus secret, but at the same time, they got to find out what the Empire is doing to make sure it's not a threat to them. And along the way, they wind up running into these two native boys. Barney, who is, as we learn in this, black, right? It's not just some other name here for people who are not Caucasian in the Star Wars universe. There is a line in this very issue referring to him as black, actually referring to Lando as black, using sort of Earth terminology from a racial standpoint here. But this younger male named Barney and his buddy, who is also a young male named Flint. And I don't know if it's a purposeful reference to G.I. Joe or not, though I doubt it, honestly. So these two guys start tagging along with our heroes, trying to do what they can to help out, and they're aware, of the situation on Belderone. Basically, since the Empire got there, there's not much of a life to be had in the villages there on Belderone, and many of the people, young men, older men alike, women, are working in these factories with these machine parts for the Empire. Though at this point, they don't know what they do when they all come together. They just know that they're working factory labor on and on and on monotonously for the Empire. Now, Flint and Barney manage to see Luke's lightsaber and start thinking, hey, he's a Jedi Knight, because Flint has grown up with this idea that his father was a Jedi Knight. He's now not present, he's now dead, presumably, but he was a Jedi Knight. So seeing Luke with the lightsaber makes him think, aha, this is someone who could train me or teach me to be like my father and really be the one to make a difference. Barney and Flint both want to be the ones to make a difference. So, once they start to realize what exactly it is that is going on, they're sort of getting hints that the Empire is up to building something here. We wind up in a situation where a man by the name of Andrid, he's one of the Imperial officers, jumps the gun and tries to attack the small group of rebels, right? Luke and Leia and all of them. And this not only draws Darth Vader's ire and causes him to choke Andrid to death, but it also lets them know, uh-oh, we're in trouble. Big things are happening. The Empire is starting to move. And as the Empire starts to move toward Kolthus, our heroes have to split up. And Luke and Chewbacca have to go back, Luke has to go back to Kolthus to let them know, hey, the Empire is coming, so they can gear up in their X-Wings and come back to Belderone to hit the Empire as it's coming and to hit the Imperial facility there, whatever it might be, even if it's just to draw off Imperial attention. Meanwhile, Leia and Lando and that part of the group wind up going with Barney and Flint to where they've been building whatever it is they're building, and it turns out that what they found here is a base where the Empire is building AT-ATs. ATT walkers, or ATT, AT-ATs, AT-AT walkers here, like the ones that the rebellion fought on Hoth. And the rebels wind up fighting back against this. Luke, once he gets there, winds up landing on an AT-AT by accident. It happens to be one that Lando is in charge of and Leia's in charge of because they were able to overpower the crew for that one as it was heading out. They get onto it. Luke lands on top, manages to jump off, gets into another AT-AT by cutting his way into the head of it, the cockpit of it, takes out the people who are inside there, and there's this kind of running battle over this secret base of the Imperials that was initially an underground base, but now it's kind of opening up at the time, and the rebels do win the day. But one of the AT-ATs makes its way through the town, blasting away at it, and some of the fighting carries into the village. And by the end of the story, we find that Flint and Barney are racing back to warn everyone that the fight is coming to them, that it's not about good or evil, it's about saving their families. It's not about rebellion or empire. They've got to just save the ones they love. They wind up zipping through, and Flint, who's always been kind of a daredevil, runs through so fast, they get into a speeder accident here, and Barney winds up being severely injured, or it seems like he's severely injured. Barney is laying there on the ground injured, where Flint goes in to figure out whether his mom is okay, only to find his mom dead. And he basically says, I will make this up to you. I will make sure that this can never happen again. I'm going to try to be someone who matters. I'll show everyone. And he happens to say this in earshot of Vader, who's been watching them. It actually winds up being something that is more poignant now than it was when it was first published back in 1983. The scene goes, Flint is standing over or kneeling over his mother's dead body and says, "It was all just a game. We were useless. We couldn't do a thing, and they let us go on pretending we could help. But we couldn't. We were useless. I was useless, and now you're dead. I swear to you, I'm going to learn. I'm going to get the same training my father had, right, to be a Jedi. I'm going to become someone who matters, and then I'll show them all." Then comes Vader saying, "I know how you feel. I had almost forgotten what it was like to feel that way. It has been some time since I heard anyone speak the way you do now. I did not take you seriously before, and I should have. Forgive me. Let me make it up to you now. I could not single you out for special training right away, right, to be essentially a dark Jedi, an apprentice to Vader. You would be just one of our men at first. But I have sensed the power in you, the Force. In time, I promise you, you will be tutored specially, and if you really wish it, you will become someone who matters very much." Now think about Anakin, in light of the events of Attack of the Clones, having his mother die, the promise, I will become the most powerful Jedi ever, and all that stuff, right? No matter how badly acted it was on Hayden Christensen's part, it is a poignant moment, and it's that loss of his mother that drives Anakin to become Darth Vader in a lot of ways. Trying to get power to stop anyone from dying close to him again. In that case, Padme, based on the loss of his mother and the traumatic impact that it had. And here's Flint going through the same thing, and Vader coming in saying, "I'd almost forgotten what it was like to feel that way." Obviously, there's no way they could have known this back when Mary Jo Duffy was writing this for release in August of 1983. That we were going to see that happen in 2002 and have ramifications in 2005 in the films for episodes 2 and 3. But it really has a heavy impact here. Unfortunately, the artwork doesn't carry the impact hardly at all. But the impact here of the writing really hits home to someone who's now seen Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith. In the end, what do we get? Barney has nothing to stay there for. The whole planet is, or not the whole planet, the whole village is pretty much wiped out. Barney joins the rebels. We will see him again. As for Flint, he starts out becoming a stormtrooper, but we will see him again in the future. Don't think that just because this is kind of an annual that seems out of place and it felt like a sort of a throwaway story, that this is a throwaway story. It's not. Flint and Barney will return, and we'll find that Flint actually becomes the apprentice to somebody that we have seen before, though that's more of a retcon later than it is something we're actually seeing in that issue to come. But I guess I'm kind of getting ahead of myself in this case. So, despite the poor artwork, in my opinion, is this story, The Apprentice, Marvel Annual number 3, an essential read? I would say for the broader scheme of things in the EU, it is not. However, for the Marvel series, it absolutely is, because this will be something that will tie into a later issue with Flint and Barney, and I hesitate, to give anything away if you haven't checked this out before, but suffice to say, thanks to some retcons, this will actually become part of a broader arc that involves a character we have seen before and will see again. Think Dark Lady of the Sith. Yeah, now I've given it away. In any event, decent read, not that great of artwork, but it does have a later impact on the Marvel series. With that, we'll wrap up this episode. Thank you for watching, and may the Force be with the readers.